Howdy, hey, hello there. Today I'm showing you how to make drawstring backpacks. These are backpacks that I'm making for the girls' T&T age group, basically 3rd to 6th grade, and I have all the 6th graders at my table because they're awesome and it's so cool and so fun. Hi girls! Okay, anywho, my mom did the embroidery on her fantastically awesome embroidery machine, and then they just drawstring clothes once they're finished, and you've done it properly at least. And then it just opens up, so the girls will get to color on the white, and then inside is the color of their table. There's 4 different color tables. There's green, yellow, blue, and red. So the outside embroidery has the same color as the inside. So the things you'll need are, if you want to make just like this, you'll need white for the outside, and a green or a plain color for the inside, or a print is also cute. And then you'll need, I believe it's 4mm. I'll make sure and put it in the description. 4mm cording, and this is called macrame cord. I believe this is Pepperell. Pretty sure. I'll put it on the screen here. And so I did 70-inch lengths for the shoulder straps, and then 4 inches for this little strap down here. And I'm pretty sure that's it. So let's get started. Yay! I forgot to mention that it's helpful to have a lighter so that once you cut your ends, it doesn't ravel at all. You just hold the fire over it for a little bit until it melts down to a nice hardened state. So that's also something that's helpful. I have my cording cut, so I will set my 4-inch pieces and my 70-inch pieces aside. And I'm going to cut out the green lining because I'm making another green bag. And the finished dimensions are 15, well, let me check that before I tell you, just so I don't make a liar out of myself. The finished dimensions for the lining and for the white piece are 15.5 by 39. Now when you have your pieces cut out to the right measurements, you're going to pin them right sides together and sew along both edges to make a kind of tube. So if you're pinning it like I am, you want your embroidery, if you have embroidery, or your printed side facing you, and then pin your lining like this. And I'm using 1/2-inch seam allowance for pretty much all of my seam allowance unless otherwise noted. So I just pin there, and then match up the bottom. After we do this, I'll meet you over at the ironing board. For this next step, I'm going to be using Clover's Press Perfect. It's amazing. I love it. I can't use it enough. It just makes my life so much easier. What I like to do is press my seams after I stitch them. It helps the stitching sit a bit nicer. And I will show you this step once, but you really need to do it 4 times. So I spread that over my ironing board, and then I iron this seam open. Nice and flat there. And then from here, we're going to take this and fold in the edge about 1/4 inch, or right at 1/4 inch. And you can use this, or you can use a seam gauge and just measure up 1/4 inch every once in a while and fold it in and over. And then since this has a ruler on it, I'm actually going to just scoot this over while I turn this over on itself. And then I pin 1 inch away from the seam line on both sides, or a little bit more than 1 inch, just to make sure that when I go to sew it, it catches it far down enough. So then this side is done. I'm going to also do this end, but then I'll do the opposite on this tube also. So I'll open this seam and then fold in those edges, and then I'll go over to the sewing machine and stitch from this pin to this pin 4 times. So on each of the 4 places. When I'm doing this stitching, I'm stitching close to this fold, and this is actually creating the opening for the casing for the shoulder straps. Here is how my tube looks now that I have that stitched for all 4 places. Now I'm going to flip it right side out so that all of the seams are to the inside, and kind of finger press this a little bit. And also flip the other side. And now I'm going to give a seam allowance of 3/4 of an inch from this fold right here, and I will sew down this way, and that's going to create, like I said, the casing. Sewing here, that's going to create the casing for the straps to slide through. For this next step, you'll need to grab your 4-inch pieces of your strap or cording or whatever you call it. So here's what that step looks like. That's just a little tube now. Now I'm going to fold the white to the inside, and lining up my edges here, making sure that my strap ends are even. I'm going to place a pin 1 inch from this corner edge here, and you could go all the way down to the fold if you want to, but it's definitely a lot easier if you're serging to start about 1 inch away. Now I'm taking my cording, folding that in half, and pushing it all the way down next to this pin, right like that. And if you want to, you can stick a little bit of the cording to the outside of the seam allowance, just so you can see that you're going to catch the edges of it. And then I place a pin here, and then, whoops, these edges can get a little bit trickier, so I like to pin them so that I make sure that as I'm using my 1/2 inch seam allowance, I'm catching the whole raw edge. So I'm basically just unfolding it as far as I can, and then I place a pin through there so that it's easy to remove. And I do the same for this side. You can see here that I just used white to match the outside. I suppose you could use green for this. That would be kind of cute if there was some detail stitching, but white is just easier, so then I didn't have to change color for each and every little bag. So now, after I pin this side, I will go along and sew. I'll try to start right about here, and then 1/2 inch away all the way down. 1/2 inch away from the edge, sorry, that was confusing. And then go all the way down, and I double back stitch, whatever you want to call it, over the strap, because I know it's going to get lots of wear and tear, and then I back stitch on the fold and up on this end also. So I'll do that to both sides, 1/2 inch, and then I'll serge, but I'll show you before I serge it. Here is the finished bag. As long as you have a little bit of overlap, that's good. You don't have to match up perfectly with the seam lines, you just want to make sure that no raw edges are sticking out through the front. So for those of you who do not have a serger, what you can do is do a zigzag stitch instead of a straight stitch where I did mine, and then use pinking shears. And as you can see, these cut a zigzag rather than straight, and that helps it from fraying. The serger cuts and then folds in the fabric so that it won't fray, but the pinking shears are what people used to do before sergers weren't invented. So if you are not able to splurge on a serger at this time, that is what you can do. For the serger, I'm starting at this end and working my way down here, and then all that's left to do is string the shoulder straps through. Here you can see I'm all finished with the serging, so I am just going to flip the bag right side out. And then I have a knitting needle here that's going to help me make the corners look a little bit nicer than if I wouldn't poke them around. You can also use a pen if you don't have, like if you have a retractable pen or a pen with a cap on it, that's what I would suggest. But a knitting needle works really great just to get that corner nice and crisp. You'll need a safety pin for the strap portion, so go ahead and grab a safety pin. That's all finished. Set the knitting needle aside. And I found a shortcut way of doing this. And as long as you have your brain on straight, it works. So take a large safety pin, whatever will fit through the casing of your bag, and thread both straps on, and then close it. Then go into the casing. The hardest part is just making sure that the hard ends of the strap, cording, whatever, will go in. But then after that, it's pretty easy. There it goes. So you're going to thread 2 straps through the first way. So once you get to the end, take off one of the straps and give it a good pull. Now you're going to take the one that's still on there and thread it through. So you'll actually be threading something 3 times instead of 4. Now what I like to do is grab the loop on this side and drag it out a ways. There, I'm going to unhook that. And then I'll find this side. Okay, so you're this one and that one. And then I'll even out here and pull the straps even before I do that. So then pull that, and then you're going to thread 1 through this loop down here, and then tie an overhand knot and get really close to the ends. And that side's done. Now we need to grab this loose end and put it back onto the safety pin and go through this way. This is probably the hardest one because there's already a cord in there and it's making it kind of crowded, which is why it's so much faster to do 2 the first time. So again, using that loop technique to make sure that the ends will be even, I will even out the ends and then tie the knot. So I like to leave a big loop there. And then pull it. And before I pull it through here, I make sure that the top looks good, and I'll show you what I mean. Before I tie that knot, I make sure that this end and this end both look nice to where they're not going to get caught as you go to close the drawstring backpack. But look, we're already done. That was so fast and so easy. Ta-da! Ta-da! There it is, it's all finished. I promise this is the one that I just made and not the one I showed you in the intro. I have 7 of this color, 7 of blue, 6 of red, and 6 of yellow. I have 1 extra for each table, just in case another girl joins. Anywho, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really enjoyed having you along for the ride. If you enjoyed being here, please do hit that subscribe button and the like button and the comments and all that stuff. I'm really trying to get my channel to grow, even though I'm not posting consistently. I know, I'm working on it, I promise. But again, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!